Hi everyone, I'm Paula and welcome to Sew Spark Studio. I'm going to be showing you 3 different techniques for shortening a stretch fabric, such as that found in yoga pants. This technique could also be used to shorten a t-shirt or to shorten sleeves, or if you were sewing a t-shirt, you could use this for hems as well. So join me and let's get started. We're working with a fabric that stretches, and that is something we want to take into account when we're stitching the bottom of the pant leg. Now I've got a pair of yoga pants and a pair of leggings here. If you have the wider leg, the amount of stretch in the bottom of the pant leg is not as significant because this is going to fit over your foot whether it actually will stretch or not. Although I am going to do a stitch that will allow for some stretch in it. But if you're going to shorten a pair of leggings like this has to get over your foot, and it definitely needs to have stretch in order for that to happen. So you need to make sure that whatever method you use to stitch the hem on the bottom of these, it's going to maintain that ability to stretch. So I'm going to show you 3 different methods for doing that. And you can see there's 2 rows of stitching on the hem here. And this is the way that most knits are hemmed when they're done in the fashion industry. And if you look at the back of it, you can see it's got kind of this zigzag look here. And this is done with a specialized machine called a cover lock. You can buy cover locks for your home, but I don't happen to have one. So I'm going to show you what you can do with your regular sewing machine. But if you do have a cover lock, that's the method I would use here. Now, before I get into doing 2 rows of stitching, I'm going to show you how you could do this with a single row. And a single row is fine. When you're wearing a pair of pants like this, I don't think anybody's going to be looking at your pant legs and going, oh look, there's only 1 row of stitching there instead of 2, right? So a single row is fine if that's all you want to do. So in my machine, this needle that I have right now is actually a size 80. It's my favorite size for most things I do. And it is a universal needle, which means it's suitable for most fabrics. So what you can do is, I'm using this for testing, is test the stitching, and if it is skipping stitches, you probably need to switch to a stretch needle. But I did a little stitching earlier, and this universal needle was working fine in this particular size. So I've got my stitch length on 2.5 on a straight stitch, and if you want, you could go even up to a 3 on this. When you're sewing, and I like to sew from the right side, especially on knits, so you need to know how wide my fold is, and right now I've got it at approximately 3/4 inches, and I'm going to line it up with the 5/8 inch if you're in the States, or 1.5 centimeters if you prefer metric. And when I stitch this, so I would start stitching normally and lock my stitching, do a little back stitch on that, and then as you stitch this, you stretch and just pull a little bit. And then you get a stitch. You can see how I've got quite a bit of stretch in that particular stitch. So now another stitch you can use, we'll go a little further along here, is you can go to a zigzag stitch on your machine. On my machine, I would use this number 8 zigzag here. And it comes on with quite a wide stitch, but we want to mimic a straight stitch for this one. So instead of a 5 for the width, I'm going to go down all the way to probably 0.5. And length here is 1.5. We can make that longer. I'm going to make it 2, I think should work for this. And when I sew this one, I don't need to stretch because the zigzag is going to give the stretchiness to it. You can't hardly tell that that's a zigzag stitch, but it is got that stretchiness in it so that you could fit that over your foot if you had a more fitted pair of pants. Now, so a straight stitch will work if you don't happen to have a twin needle, but my preferred method of stitching is to use the twin needle because that's going to give me a result that is closest to what the original hem was like without having an actual cover stitch. Twin needles come in a variety of sizes, and I've got 3 different ones here. Some of the narrower ones are used for more decorative sewing, like pin tucks. I want something wider than that, so this one is 4 millimeters, and the needle size is 75, which also works well on this particular synthetic material. I've happened to choose a stretch needle, but the universal worked when I was doing straight stitching, so you might be able to get away with a universal twin needle as well. So we're going to remove our single needle. Well, first of all, I'm going to change to a straight stitch. I had it on a zigzag. You do not want to zigzag with a twin needle. These are not cheap, and if I try zigzagging with this needle, I'm going to break it, which I don't want to do. Now, I was playing around with this earlier, and I thought the tension was a little bit too tight for it. It was pulling on the stitching. Maybe I should show a bit and just show you what it was doing. So I'm going to change my stitch length. My machine usually comes on at 2.2, which is not a stitch length I usually sew with. So I would normally do 2.5. For this, I'm going to do 2.8. If you look at the stitching on a lot of industrial garments, they use a bit longer stitch length. And because of the stretch in this, I think 2.8 is going to work well. I'm sewing from the right side, and I'm going to be lining up on just a little bit more than 5/8, just a little more than 1.5, almost to 2 centimeters, or almost to 3/4, but not quite. This is the original hem on the pant leg, and this is what I just sewed. And you can see it's not bad, but I think my tension is a little bit too tight, and so it's causing it to pull together a little bit and raise that more than I would like it to be. So what I'm going to do is adjust my tension. It's set on 4. I'm going to turn it down 1 point and turn it to 3, and I'm going to test this again. And that looks pretty good. Now, if you look at the back of it, you can see that you get this kind of zigzag effect because there's only 1 bobbin thread. So it's sort of similar to what a cover lock would do, but not exactly the same. But it does do a good job of duplicating the look,